write in and tell us more so that I can understand more. But you guys, we got to get to our guests because they're waiting and they're amazing. We are welcoming to the show, and I'm going to read their bios here, which are lengthy, but they're good. First of all, we're welcoming Dr. Christopher Manente. He is a PhD BCBA. All good, right? I told you we are going to have an expert in here. He's the founding executive director of the Rutgers Center for Adult Autism Services. Everybody just went, what? And a clinical associate professor at the Rutgers Graduate School of Applied and Professional Psychology. He is an accomplished professor, practitioner, and advocate who has dedicated his career to helping adults on the autism spectrum succeed within their homes and communities throughout their lifespan and across the context of school, work, relationships, leisure, and transportation. Can I get an amen from anybody? Yes. Dr. Manente has taught over a dozen distinct university courses for students across the undergraduate and graduate levels. He has authored articles in peer-reviewed journals, written book chapters, and has presented at numerous national and international conferences on a variety of topics related to the advancement of community-based educational, vocational, and residential opportunities for adults with autism. There's so much more, including that he was a sergeant on active duty with the U.S. Army's 101st Airborne Infantry Division. Thank you for your service, Dr. Manente. Additionally, Dr. Manente is a prior special education student who was often told by many of his teachers that he was too smart for his own good. Would we like to travel back in time and slap those teachers? And that he wouldn't amount to much. Now I want to kick them with a pointed shoe. We are also being joined, as if that wasn't enough, you guys, we're also being joined by Marlee Aversa. She is the founder and CEO of M&J Games. I mentioned before, I'm a new fan of theirs. They are innovators of the popular What's Next life-size games. Their inaugural game, What's Next, a life-size board game, was created to provide family-friendly, screen-free entertainment. Over time, M&J Games diversified its offerings to encompass adult party games, family options, and adaptive games for individuals of all abilities, embodying a commitment to creating lasting memories and innovative play for everyone. She has a bachelor's degree in corporate communications from Drexel. With over 20 years of marketing experience, she plays a pivotal role in steering the growth and prosperity of the company. She actively balances her family life, and we are so thrilled. They're a family of 4. She's got a son and a daughter. We're so thrilled that you guys are here to join with us. So we're welcoming Dr. Manente and Marlee. Hi, you guys.
Hi, Shannon. Thanks for having us.
Well, a thrill. Amazing to have both of you with us at the same time. I want to start by, this is a pretty interesting relationship between a game company and Rutgers. Who wants to answer this? But how did this relationship come about?
So I actually saw Dr. Manente on a newscast about Rutgers RCAAS, and I thought that this is a time that I'm trying to do more with my inclusion with the games. So this could be a cool next step. So I reached out immediately and sent him an email saying I'm interested in kind of knowing what RCAAS is about. And I have these games that you could potentially use with that throughout RCAAS. So I actually sent him, he responded almost immediately saying that he would like to see the special needs set, which was the one that you guys actually gave the award for. I have that right here.
Amazing.
And once he requested them, I said, you know what, I'm gonna send him all the games, just as kind of a, hey, here's our selection of games. And it's a good thing I did, because I think the adult game, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Manente, the drinking game actually is what sparked the interest to create a combination kind of between that and the special needs set, making it more of like an adult feeling, as opposed to the special needs set was more of a kid-friendly, active, physical game. This one makes you think.
Is that what drew you to it, Dr. Manente?
I mean, that certainly piqued my interest. There's no doubt. I mean, Rutgers is absolutely a tailgating school, and we have with a really rich offering of athletic events, and our autistic college students here need to know how to engage and be incorporated in everything that our university has to offer. So it just seemed like it'd be a lot of fun, and was definitely a departure from what I was accustomed to when I thought about traditional quote unquote board games. And Sharon, and I have to say, I think I'm probably preaching to the choir or even the converted and talking to your audience and saying that the quote unquote field of adult services, these dysfunctional anti-systems of support that exist out there to help adults with autism succeed are they're just so antiquated, and they're really stale and really ripe for innovation and frankly downright disruption. So for me, when I see anyone doing anything exciting or innovative that could potentially be a vehicle for driving change in the form of better services or better opportunities for practitioners in this space to help prepare young adults on the spectrum, or help those young adults themselves be more prepared for the transition to adulthood, which again, for many folks listening, represents this terrifying void where you're almost kind of like jumping out into nothingness. I always jump at it and see if we can do something special. And Marlee has this brilliant game that I think is totally innovative and so much fun and engaging. And we've just had such a good time, coming up with this cool new innovation. And all of the folks at our center too have really enjoyed, playing and learning through this.
Well, and I want to talk more about the game, but I want to assure everybody we're going to cycle back to talk more about what's happening at for everybody. You guys are saying RCAAS, and it's behind you there, Rutgers Center for Adult Autism Services, right? Yes, that's real. That's what we're talking about, and we're going to talk more about that in a second. But I want to talk a little bit about the game first. So, who wants to tell us what the game is and how you play it? And I've opened up mine here. I've got my dice. I've got my big dice, and I've got some of my
I'm there
squares
with
here.
you.
I also opened up because I had a social expansion pack. But who wants to explain?
Yeah, so the original game, let me give you a little background.
Yeah.
The original game was made for family inclusion. So that's this game. It was made so that there was no activity on the game that even a grandparent couldn't do. So the initial thought was inclusion. Then I went to a local Spectrum Sports is their name, and we played the game, the original game, with them, and there were certain tiles within the original game that were difficult. And not being in the autism community, I wanted to learn more. So I found this opportunity to take this to a next level, and we worked with them to make this social skill add-on to make it more adaptable from a physical standpoint. So then when I sent it over to Christopher, we needed Dr. Manente, sorry. We had a conversation to make it more of an adult-oriented, like an adolescent roadmap to adulthood, we call it. So it's kind of a guide, and it really is, it was created with a neurodivergent mindset, but it can be used for anyone who's just having trouble getting to that next step and kind of thinking about, okay, what do I want to do in the future? Where do I want to be in the future? Do I want to drive? What do I do if I get anxious? And I feel like it's a barrier that needs to be broken, where the games should be fun and inclusive for everybody. And certain parts of the original game, yes, they were fun in my eyes, but they were challenging in other eyes. So the 100% goal of this is to make board games should be fun. They should be inclusive for everybody, and I want to make sure that everybody has that same fun experience that my kids, that my in-laws, my parents are having with my kids. Yeah.
People always ask me when I'm doing the toy guide, like, what am I looking for? Like, what gets me excited about a toy? And of course, for me, the first thing is that it has to be fun. If it's not fun, then it's not a game and it's not a toy. And but then if you supercharge it and I'm learning something, skills that can help me and it's empowering me to feel good about myself, then you're cooking with gas for me. And then you've got my attention. And that's really what got my attention about this game. And I believe, if I'm not wrong, the award that we gave you guys was the Empowering Employment Award. That a toy that can help us to gain skills that make it so that when we are on our first job, we are more successful. I get real excited. And that's the award that I gave you guys without even knowing you. So what do you want to say about this, Dr. Manente?
Shannon, I actually just want to highlight. So we talked a little bit just now about the importance of a game actually being fun, right? And being engaging. And I want to. There's a lot of things that makes What's Next very special. But for me, as someone who doesn't sit still well, who is always moving and always active, who supports and educates children, adolescents, and adults who fit that profile as well. The thing that is most engaging and most fun to me is in What's Next, you are the game piece, right? So we're calling this a board game, but the board that that the game is played on is the world around you. So, this isn't a traditional quote unquote board game where someone is expected to have to sit still quietly and passively and wait for their turn and stay in one place. This game very much it expects people to get up and move around and do things. So I think for a lot of learners for whom traditional board games really aren't accessible because it's not fun to sit still without physical motion and engagement. This represents kind of a real evolution in providing something that is familiar as a traditional board game, but is really different. And I think for some folks on the spectrum too, the idea of like playing the old game of life, right, where you have a plastic piece that you're moving around, and you're supposed to pretend like that plastic piece is you. I think this adds another layer of like concreteness, right? Because having to pretend like you're a piece of plastic moving around a cardboard thing on a table is pretty abstract, and I think this cuts through that and really puts you in the game. And when Marlee first got in touch with me, the original title of the game, What's Next, was it just struck me, right? Because the original format of the game, the title, What's Next, I think pertains to kind of like what space is coming up, right? You're going to roll this, incredibly fun, huge foam dice and then like land somewhere and find out what's next in the game. But it was such a parallel to this incredibly scary and big picture question that not just autistic young people, but all young people are facing when it comes time to figure out, what they're going to do with their life, right? What is next?
Yeah.
And so it was just a natural, I think, next step to create a game that both challenges players to think about what's next in terms of what's going to happen, when you roll the dice and land on a new square, a new tile, but then also figure out what's next in your life more broadly. And of
Yeah.
course, this is a question that is of the most pressing to all families and individuals on the spectrum.
Absolutely. And I understand that a portion of the proceeds, when somebody buys the game, that a portion of it goes to your program, Dr. Manente?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, our program has an unapologetic commitment to high quality services and, paying our direct care staff and staff all levels an extremely good salary and, even separate from what, our state currently provides in terms of budgets for individuals to get those supports. And we think this is critical to really establishing a real professional field of practice around the work we do. And so we do rely on philanthropy to cover the enormous cost of paying our staff so well. But we know that is truly critical if we're going to create a workforce of specialized folks who know how to help people with autism across the spectrum succeed across adult contexts.
I love that you're not apologizing for that, because you shouldn't. So I want to like put into practice some of the things that we're talking about here. I've got the original pack here, and I love this because you get this stack of tiles, right? And right from the beginning, I love that it's our job to put these tiles, we're making the board however we want them, and it can go into the living room, and it can go into the dining room, and it can go into the bathroom. We can choose, and each one of these tiles says something different. They're numbered so that I can follow along. As a parent, thank you for this, because I know my child who would just take them and throw them everywhere. But they're numbered so that we're teaching numbers and doing all of that as well. You're not going to get bored playing this game. What do you guys, while I'm showing some of these, talk about how you play the game and what your mission is with this?
So the initial mission of the game was to be so simple that anybody could figure it out. There are 5 steps in the initial instructions on how to actually play the game. However, when we started creating the new game, What's Next, the Life-Size Transition game, which is the adult version, the adolescent version of the game that you have there.
Yeah.
They're actually on pre-orders right now, and we're hoping that they are here by the start of Autism Awareness Month. That's our goal. Hopefully they'll be here a little bit sooner. They're on a boat right now. But this game has another step to it. So one of the biggest things that Dr. Manente and I worked on together, and his team, was creating this transition guide. So every game, the original games have just a 1-sheet step of instructions. It's pretty self-explanatory. But this one we wanted to make sure was adaptable, didn't matter what your needs are, your abilities are. We want to make sure that everybody is included, whether you are a little bit beyond where the game takes you. If you've played the game several times, you might want to change it a little bit. Some of these things might be a little bit further that you could take them. If you're feeling a little nervous, how do you calm down? And one of the little dots that we've put on here, it's a little hand saying that, hey, you can use this guide to tell you, okay, if you are non-vocal, minimally verbal, if you are in need of another level of this game, it can enhance. And then also we can modify it a little bit just to keep the conversation going a little bit farther. So for example, for this one is tile 16, you would just go to the book, look for tile 16, and we have ways to modify it, enhance it. And then if you're non-vocal, minimally verbal, you can point. And the facilitator has the discretion on which one would make more sense for their client. Whether the facilitator be the parent, be an occupational therapist, anybody can play the game and just a teacher enjoy it and adapt it so that every person playing the game gets value out of it and has fun doing it, and make some of these things that are a little bit nerve-wracking for some more fun. And it's easier to bring it up if a game brings it up, as opposed to just, hey, do you think you want to drive in the future? If the game lands on it, did you ever think about that? And it's more fun. And it goes beyond conversation and hopefully makes people more comfortable in the surroundings of the situations.
So I'm going to go out on a limb and say that because I think, this is available right now, the original game, and I think everybody should have that. Autism Journey with Elijah wrote in and said, this is so wonderful and refreshing. I'd like to be a part of this successful achievement. How do I purchase this, and what are the age requirements? So the original game is for 4+, and you guys can get that. You can go on to M&J Games, but we also have a link to it on the toy guide. But where would you like them to go to purchase it?
So to purchase any of the other games, the original games, it's mj-games.com. They're also available on Amazon. And the new transition game, you can pre-order this game now and just ensure that you have your copy when it comes in. Those are available strictly on the website of mj-games.com/transition. So it'll take you right to the pre-order page.
And what is the age that you're shooting for on that one?
So this one we recommend 14 plus, kind of a good age to start thinking about that. You could probably go a little bit earlier, depending on your person. It's another thing where you have to know your audience.
But I think for anybody, starting with the first one, so you know a little bit about putting the tiles down and playing the game and establishing how super fun it is, and now we're gonna, then do the social add-on and then do the transitions, I think is a wonderful way to go about this. I see you nodding your head, Dr. Manente. What do you think?
Absolutely. And just to highlight that, I think that this game is so beneficial, from a variety of perspectives. Transition planning can sometimes inadvertently feel like an interrogation, where, school counselors, teachers, parents just have a list of questions that they want to ask an individual about, are you interested in going to college? Are you interested in living alone? Do you want to drive? Where do you want to work? Right? What are your hobbies? What do you want to learn? Right? And I think individuals just get asked these questions in interrogation style so much that just the idea of transition kind of becomes aversive at some point. So to Marlee's point, to gamify this process, I think makes it a whole lot less painful. It feels a lot less like an interrogation. And if you're a parent of neurodivergent kids, you know as well as I do, like it's at some point, like your kids just, they've had enough, right? They know it. They know so I think it avoids that kind of tension. Whereas a parent, you're just super worried about, quote unquote, what's next for your kid. And this gives like a fun, mechanism for still, trying to get them thinking about these things without you having to be the primary person who's always bringing it up. And from the individual's perspective too, this isn't an autism thing. Like all kids who are in their early teens and approaching adulthood get asked these questions all the time. However, a lot of the individuals on the spectrum that we work with may really struggle to have good answers when they're asked these questions. So this really gives them, a fun way of practicing, what they're going to say in a social situation when one of their peers says, hey, what are you thinking about in terms of school? Or, what kind of jobs do you think you'll want to do? And those opportunities, for developing friendships and other strong relationships really have to be capitalized on. I think that's, what we've learned more than anything is, the traditional social skills group where it's like a circle and it's a contrived question, your favorite movie, what'd you do last weekend? It only gets you so far. I mean, you really need the opportunity to practice those component social skills that you acquire in more dynamic, more authentic contexts. And I think that this game represents an excellent, nice next approximation, from that traditional kind of like contrived social skills group.
I love that because just the other day we were having a conversation about the sad state of preparation for this transition, and I was telling a parent who's about to have a 15-year-old about the whole ITP process, which is the individual transition plan that schools are supposed to be helping with. But unfortunately, many don't know. They're not even aware of what it is, how to do it, even though they're legally responsible for it. And the ones who do understand what it is, oftentimes it is exactly what you just said, that I remember them giving my son a subscription to a website, which all it was one of those horrible job evaluation things where you answer a bunch of questions and then it says, you should go be a baseball player. Or you should, and there's like, and no one is there to help you to know, is that even something you want? And if you did, how would you go about it? Like it's just a questionnaire with nothing else, which makes me so mad. I want to like light my hair on fire and run into the street. Right? But
Don't do that.
Right. But no. That was considered helping him. That was considered helping him to find his chosen career. We're in a sad state of affairs for transitioning. which is why we're so happy we found you, Dr. Manente. But anyway, so this game can be a wonderful way of making it fun and starting the conversation, and it isn't all on you as the parent. What a lovely, lovely thing. And you mentioned that these games can be for anyone. They really can. You can play this with all the neighborhood kids. You can play this with your teenager who is completely neurotypical and have a great time doing it. There's nothing about this that says we would only reserve this for folks on the spectrum. But I understand, Dr. Manente, that you would like for there to be more games, and that perhaps you're working on this, Marlee, that are specifically for people on the spectrum. Talk to us.
Yeah, so I think that, the opportunities are limitless. One of the biggest challenges of moving us forward in terms of making sure there are better opportunities for autistic adults and other neurodivergent people is that there's just so much work to do. I mean, we're really, still at the very beginning of creating formalized curricula for helping people be more included in their communities through transportation and employment, social engagement, recreation, and independent living. It's just, these aren't things that there's been an aggressive or meaningful focus on historically. As I know that you've talked about many times on your show, historically, the greatest emphasis continues to have been placed on, research focusing on early intervention and causes and cures and little kids and, school-aged issues. And so I think, there's going to be expansion packs related to transportation. So we brought up the question of, do you want to drive? There's some research that's emerging about the low number of people with autism who do have driver's licenses and choose to drive. And it's not that, autistic people can't drive. There's just, it's complicated. It's just many aren't. And maybe many more could if there was, better opportunities for training and learning that are accessible to younger folks on the spectrum. But using public transportation, navigating the community safely, knowing that not everyone has your best interest at heart, right? So here at Rutgers, we have a beautiful university campus. But we are very much an urban university, and our students are sometimes very vulnerable, and they believe what people tell them. And having, expansion packs about navigating, environments where you're going to be in contact with strangers and who might not always, have the best of intentions. We work closely with our local police department, and like an expansion pack that involves how to interact with police officers, when you're pulled over or, when you need help. So again, I think every issue or every pain point that adults with autism experience throughout the lifespan represents another opportunity for an expansion pack for what's next.
Yep.
And so
And that was
Marlee,
one
is
of our
all this
main goals in
exciting?
creating this is it's kind of like a starter pack, and then we can branch off on certain things like career goals. Okay, so pick your career goal. Now let's talk about what you can do to get to that next step, and those would be the next tiles to create conversation to any person in different ways to make them feel more comfortable with discussing what they feel like they want to do in the future, which is why we've got them in the modified, enhanced, and then non-verbal, minimally vocal, or vice versa.
Right.
I'm still new to this.
Back to all that jargon, Shannon.
Yes. I'm learning. So let me tell you, I've learned so much from Christopher as far as just connecting to the autism community and things that I was never involved in that I'm very thankful I have the opportunity. And one of the first things that I did was take my daughter to play with Spectrum Sports initially, because I wanted to make sure that all of the pieces of the game were interesting to her and interesting to them as well. Yeah. So it was kind of to break those barriers so that there is not as much of a scare between the two communities, because I mean, let's face it, we work better when we're all together.
Amen to that. And you're doing great, by the way, with the jargon. You're handling it really well.
Thank you.
I've been here forever, so I have no excuses, and I sometimes get and the phrases change it. Sometimes something is acceptable one day and it is not the next. So it's a changing landscape where we're all trying to be mindful and listening and saying, what do you need? And you're doing good. You're listening. So that's really good.
Yeah, and for us, Shannon, I think, and Marlee is doing an incredible job of this, but I think the designation of nonverbal that's been used for a long time
Yeah.
kind of sells a lot of people who are non-vocal or minimally vocal short, because
Exactly.
even the individuals who we work with who don't have a lot, who don't speak to communicate, still have a whole lot to say,
Exactly.
and they communicate in a number of other verbal forms. So I think as a field, we are trying to move more towards minimally vocal or non-vocal.
And it's frustrating sometimes because it's hard because you want to be mindful of where we are, but then we have people who are in their homes with their family members and they have a term that they've been using, and you don't want to say to them, they'll say, my child is nonverbal, and you don't want to say to them, technically your child isn't nonverbal.
Yeah,
Like it's because that is the way they identify. So it's
totally.
it's a minefield, but we try to be open and listen and give people what they need, right? That's really the ticket. But we're running out of time here, and I want to leave some time to talk about the Rutgers Center for Adult Autism Services, because we've not had you on the show before, and it seems like you're doing some pretty amazing things. We're going to talk about how that aligns with M&J, but tell people what it is, Dr. Manente.
Absolutely. And Shannon, definitely happy to come back on another time and focus explicitly on our center, which is, a unique university-based organization. We are the first of our kind in the nation and in the world. Rutgers, as you may know, has a really rich history of supporting people on the spectrum. The first university-based school for kids with autism was founded here in 1972. And that's the Douglas Developmental Disability Center, founded by Dr. Sandra Harris. And I bring that up because it was 3 years prior to the passage of IDEA, right? Before, kids with disabilities had the legal right to have a free and appropriate public education. They were getting one here at Rutgers. And, the RCAAS really is an extension of that history. We are really pushing the boundaries as to what's possible and expected for autistic adults after they age out of their educational entitlement. And of course, I'm sure that this has been said on this program many times, and go over that services cliff or graduate to the couch. I'm sure everyone listening knows that, quality of life outcomes for autistic people after they age out are really abysmal and pretty shocking, related to employment, emotional, psychological, physical health, social engagement, independent living, community inclusion. People with autism arguably have the worst quality of life compared to any other group of people living in our society today. And it just doesn't seem like anyone cares as much as they ought to. And so the Rutgers Center for Adult Autism Services, the RCAAS, was really founded, on this idea that, we need to, move the needle in creating an entire professional field of practice around this work in order to help this population of individuals who are failing to thrive throughout our nation and globally. And when I refer to a professional field of practice, I'm generally referring to examples of excellence in programs that help people, formal college and university training programs that teach people how to be specialized practitioners in an area, and then research. And those three components are self-sustaining, right? If you have excellent programs, you can do research on what works best. And then once you have that research, you can train others to do that. And one component of a professional field of practice feeds another. And so it's been 50 years, and we have that in special education. You can go to any college and university, and if you're a bright-eyed, enthusiastic, early career educator who wants to work in special education, you can sign up for a formal program and learn how to be highly qualified in that. And so our center aspires to create and establish that same professional field of practice to help autistic adults succeed in the world across all of these adult domains. And so we have 4 different programs currently under our center's umbrella. And we work with all adults on the spectrum. We have programs from our intensive outpatient clinic, which supports adults with the most complex, most severe challenging behavior, even life-threatening challenging behavior. And, we have our college support program, which supports our autistic college students here at Rutgers, some of whom are already addressing some of the most complex problems and issues in fields like medicine or aerospace engineering, and everyone in between. And we're demonstrating that all adults with autism can succeed if only given the right supports and opportunities. And we're doing so in a way where we're also training the next generation of practitioners who want to specialize in working with adults.
Absolutely amazing. But I know, especially when people hear this in podcasts, they're going to have a bunch of questions about, like even when you were talking about the outpatient, I presume they need to live within a certain distance, or do you have people who, the parents come and rent an apartment so that they can do your program?
Yeah, so we've not had anyone who's actually come and stayed in a hotel or rented an apartment, although we're in conversation with many people who want to.
Yeah.
Our intensive outpatient clinic just launched a year ago as the world's first acute behavioral clinic for adults 21 plus. That's also situated within an inclusive setting, because many other acute settings that exist on the pediatric side of things exist in a hospital setting or other highly controlled, segregated setting. So we're open to that, and certainly we're looking to grow and help as many people as possible. So we would be happy to be in touch with anyone who desperately needs the help that we can provide, with the caveat that there's a lot of people in that situation, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, and some of the ways that insurance has changed has created this, unfortunate group of people who are told that their insurance will only pay for that level of an intensive program, and yet the waiting lists, so I'm always looking for more things that I can refer people to. Well, what you're doing is amazing. If people, and we're running out of time quickly, so I want to make sure that people know how to get in touch with both of these things. We talked before about if you want to buy any of the games, tell them where is best to go, Marlee.
Yeah, absolutely. Any of the games are available on mj-games.com. The pre-order from the What's Next Life-Size Transition game is exclusive to mj-games.com. The other games are also available on Amazon. And if anyone wants to get in contact with me, look on our socials at / What's Next Life-Size Games, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, we're everywhere.
Yeah.
So I'll always respond. You'll get a response from me. I like to be involved, and one of the main things that I do as a CEO is to get involved and see everything that's going on, like beyond my office. So I like to see everything that's going on outside, not just kind of staying behind the computer.
There we go.
I feel like I learn more that way, and I see my audience, and it's great. It's really been a great ride.
So remember, What's Next Life-Size Games, all together, no spaces. That's pretty much their Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and there's a YouTube channel if you want to see some of the gameplay in action. Recommend that you go there. And Dr. Manente, it's Rutgers CAAS so RCAAS. Tell us where they can find you.
Yeah, so our main website is an excellent resource. It's rcaas.rutgers.edu. And then so there's tiles on our landing page there corresponding to each of our 4 programs. And if you click into any one, there's contact information for the teams corresponding to each of those programs. So depending if you have an interest in our acute behavioral support through our intensive outpatient clinic, or if you are a neurodivergent prospective college student who wants to come to Rutgers, you can go on our CSP page and get in touch with our team there. So that would be best. And also our organizational Facebook page, which is also the Rutgers Center for Adult Autism Services on Facebook, is an excellent resource for current updates and contacts and just to stay in touch with all of the work we're doing.
Well, you guys have been an amazing wealth of knowledge. We really have enjoyed you being here. Thank you for this wonderful, for all the games, right? And I do want to acknowledge that you've hooked Autism Journey with Elijah. She's homeschooling, and she wants to implement this in her program and talk about it with other people. And so I'm sure that there will be more people who will be interested in it as well. I think it's swell. Like I said, I gave it an award without knowing them. And of course, now that I know them, you know, I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I gave you an award. But I did without knowing them, you guys, because I saw it. You know how you see something, you go, yep, they get it, I get it. It's all good. So glad that we could work it out. I know you guys have very busy lives and you need to get back to them, but I'm so glad that we worked it out and we're able to have you here on the show to share this important information. Thank you so much.
Our pleasure. Thank you, Shannon.
All right, take care. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.